Moving on. I'm sorry, Kay. I know you're like, fuck, is this what a podcast is like?
No, I've listened to many podcasts before.
Oh, okay, dude. I see. You normally don't get bored after like an hour into it.
No, I love talking about anime. I never get bored.
Hey, well, I'm glad to hear that because this one may be the complete opposite. So, also other things we've been watching are anime, adaptation movies or anime movies. And the one me and Kay have both watched, which has very biased opinions on the internet, is the Bleach live action movie. I know this is going to be a trip. Now, I feel like I kind of want to take the wheel on this one because I feel like from that introduction alone, people are going to think that we're going to shit on it, which is kind of true, but I got some positives at the same time.
Yeah, look, there's...
Yeah, let me set up the introduction and then we'll kind of go on like what the gripes we have about it. So, sorry, I don't mean to cut you off. Okay, I'll just a little bit set up. Okay, so when this got announced, 2013, 2014, one of those two, I was like, okay, this is great. And then like 3 to 4 years that came about, okay, I was like, there's no news about it. And then it was like, hey, it's coming out in 2018. I was like, dope. And then, we get the trailers and everything, but then you start to notice that every one of these trailers are the exact same with just one extra scene added to it. And I was like, yikes, because normally when trailers, mostly movies, do this, normally either their movie is very short or they don't have much to show to kind of wanting to spoil it, like, hey, this is the beginning, middle, and end in a trailer, because that's what you go see the movie for, to the whole thing and not it cut into parts. And as I noticed, each and every trailer come out, I was like, okay, I'm basically piecing this movie together, and like that's a bad thing. Like it's a bad thing. It's just like, okay, I'm not seeing anything new. I know this takes place during Grand Fisher. Everybody knows that, but it's just like none of these scenes are worth having a new trailer for. So it's just like, okay, like that's kind of sketchy. And then when the movie comes out, I think it's like June or July, one of those two. There was the Japan heat wave. It's not an excuse, guys. Don't give a fuck. But so then that comes out during the heat wave debacle and everything. Then the sales come out like, oh, did people say average sales, people say low sales. When it comes to the sales number, guys, I'm gonna be honest with you, I don't care about numbers. I care about what your movie has to offer and how I think it will go about it in the future, because this movie says it's 2 hours, only really an hour and 40 if you take out like that some of the drag on scenes. And yeah, so let's talk about the positives before we get to the negatives. The positives I like about the movie, I really like the character interactions with, like, let's say Chad or Ime or Uryu. I thought those were really good. For some reason, I enjoy seeing characters talk and kind of like understanding the world. I think when the characters in the live action film explain how the world works and how Shinigamis, how the swords and everything comes about, I think that's very interesting because it has me enticed and kind of give an understanding, since not only is the movie very short, but it gives me insight as a new viewer, because yes, I have seen the anime or the manga, but I'm going to this as someone who just completely a blank slate. I want to learn everything from the start as if I was a newcomer, which the movie kind of does, but it speeds it up in a way where it's just like, okay, we gotta get this scene out, that scene, so on and so forth. So I like the character interactions when it comes to this movie. The fight scene at the end was really good with Renji and Ichigo. I thought that was fantastic. Of course, that doesn't go like that in the anime. They, wrapped it up very quickly. But I was like, hey, this is, really dope to see if Bleach was, like, let's say redone in a way, like a revamped version. Like, oh, this fight scene probably would have turned out a lot better than, like, the quick and fast way they did in the anime. So I thought the fight scene with Renji and Ichigo was really good. The fight scene with Ichigo and Byakugo was handled. It was okay. I felt it was a little dragged out when Ichigo got defeated, because in the anime, as a lot of people know, he grabs his coat robe thing like near his ankle waist, and that's when Rukia kind of kicks him away, like, don't you dare grab my brother, like, he's a royal, how dare you, the fucking human grab someone's coat like that. And I felt like that should have gotten implemented, because that scene drags on so long when he has his long Zanpakuto and he's just like, I'm coming to get you, Byakugo. Fucking that scene drags on for 10 seconds, not even 10 seconds, I think it drags on for a whole
5 minutes.
Right, it's so long, bro. And what makes that scene worse, you're at the end of the movie, okay, this was the climactic point and it's about to end soon, but then it's let's just drag it on, we got this small budget left. We got this $1 that's about to fall that's about to be blown away in the wind. Let's just drag it on a bit more. So that was very repetitive, but the fight scene was good. And other positives, the fact that I have to think about I have to think about a positive is fucking bad.
I liked Ichigo.
Right, Ichigo was done very well. I think Rukia was done pretty good too.
Yeah, she was pretty okay. I feel like the discrepancy between her live action version and the manga version is just way too different. It was kind of distracting.
Right, I felt like this
She's
Rukia.
a good actress. I just feel like the hairstyle they chose for her was a little weird.
Right. When it comes to Rukia in the live, I felt like she came off more as a newcomer than she did someone that was like she was not a substitute, but like a lieutenant, because that's what she is like in the film and in the anime. Like she felt like this was all kind of new to her, and I was like, hey, you're kind of a lieutenant. You feel like more like someone that's going in this brand new than Ichigo is at this point. I thought that was kind of weird. I like the background settings, like the areas where Byakuya and Renji are talking in a lot of times are like places like burials and like shrines and stuff like that. I thought the settings where they were placed were really good. The Soul Society was done very well. I know that's not gonna look nowhere near as good as that if this movie does get a sequel, but that transition was done very good. Positive, gotta be positive. I'm clapping my hands, so I'm fucking sweating.
I like you said, the interactions between the classmates, like with and Chad and Tatsuki, I think.
Yeah.
Like those scenes were really funny, and like I felt more engaged with those scenes than I did with anything else throughout the movie.
Yeah, and I think those scenes should have been more of a focus, because you're going at this as a newcomer, and it's best to establish your characters more than like, okay, let's get this popular scene from the show and the next one, instead of like, hey, here's an understanding before we throw all this like Shinigami like battles at you. And fuck, bro, I'm gonna be real with you. Other than that, it's nothing but negatives here. And since I've tried to like stay mostly positive, even though I failed at it, I'm gonna let Kay have her talk about her experience and let her go from there for the rest of the points. So you have the floor.
Yay! So, I didn't have very high expectations for the movie anyway. I don't really watch live actions. I don't watch movies. I don't watch television shows or anything like that outside of anime. So I was just like, okay, well, I mean, it's Bleach. I like Bleach. It's not bad. So I'll watch it. And I just found it boring. It's really boring. They talk a lot about stuff I don't care about. There are a lot of dragged out scenes that don't mean anything. Like that final scene where he's going after Byakuya. I was like, okay. And then he gets up again and I was like, okay. And then he gets up again and I was like, okay. And then he gets up again and I was like, when the fuck is this movie done?
Yeah, and that's a good thing to bring up too. You guys are watching this podcast or whatnot. A lot of these YouTube reviewers, like, everybody's biased. I'm not gonna say that I'm not in a lot of cases. I'm not gonna say anybody's not. But you never hear anybody talks about the negatives of this movie, and I think that's because they expect this movie to bank so hard that the anime will come back. And I got a problem with that. Like, I'm being straight up honest. I don't give a fuck who you are. If your movie has a flaw and you claim yourself to be a review, a fan, whatever, you got to point out its flaws, because companies will not know or wanting to change if you don't point them out. It's not being an asshole, it's just being honest. And a lot of companies fall because fans don't tell their honest opinions about things. Like, I've seen like so many video games, so many animes, their fans would hype up and say nothing but praises, but they don't mention their downsides that end up not really hurting, but companies end up seeing, and not really the fans, because they're like, oh, you're a hater, you're this and that. Like, no, it's just being honest and just pointing out the criticisms and the flaws that said thing does have. In this case, the Bleach film.
Yeah, like I feel like the trailers for the movie spoiled all the action, and everything in between was really padded out filler to get to these special effects scenes that I feel like just didn't work. Like, I feel like nothing really transitioned very well.
Right, and speaking of transitions and like the film itself, I honestly, this was the biggest flaw of the movie. It felt like this movie was being played in fast forward mode, like on a VHS player. Like, I felt like they were trying, like, this movie felt so sped up. Like, every conversation they had was like, okay, we'll mention this and then we'll drop it. Like, the main incident is when Uryu gets introduced. He's like, oh, I'm a Quincy. Ichigo's like, what's that? Let's play this game. Okay, we fight Hollows. Renji and Byakuga shows up. The game's over. Like, that, like, they bring up, they do a lot of things in this movie when they bring up stuff and then they drop it immediately afterwards. Like, that is terrible.
Yeah, like that I think that's the scene that, like, really not confused me. It was more like, why did you even put it in the movie if you weren't going to do anything with it? Like, you see Uryu, like, crush that is supposed to attract hollows.
Yeah, it's like some type of dust sphere thing.
And he does it, and it's supposed to attract hollows, but none ever come. And then it's just the fight with Grand Fisher, and then they win, and then that's the...
Yeah, and that kind of correlates where I was explaining before. Was like, explanation really should have been in this movie. Like, when Ichigo's, like, sisters, like, was it Kazui and... It's not Kazui, it's his fucking son. That's how you know how far I am. Was it Uzu?
Uzu and Karin?
Yeah, when they get snatched up by Grand Fisher, Rukia does this, like, sleep paralysis on her dad, or Ichigo's dad. I was like, okay, don't know what that is. Grand Fisher gets defeated. We don't know what happens to Ichigo's sister, because right afterwards we do the fight with Renji and Byakuga, straight up after Grand Fisher gets defeated. Like, that's crazy.
Yeah, they kind of left them at the gravesite, right? And then they never do anything with them, and it's like, okay.
Well, no, Grand Fisher
So
still
gone.
has, like, the sisters inside of him, but once they, like, he's defeated, like, apparently, I guess they fall with him, like, near the burger joint, and then, like, for some reason, like, Ichigo and Rukia are like, oh, they're about to betray us. Like, we don't know that. Like, no, like, they explain that, but it's like, it's hard to expect the characters to know, oh, this was, like, set up. Like, you just defeated a Hollow, probably the strongest one in this movie you have fought, basically. So it's hard for, like I said, everything is very fast paced, so it's like, it's very hard for me to believe that all these characters know exactly at moment in time what's going on. It's just like, I don't even know how half the shit's going on half the time.
Right. It's like, I understand what was going on because I read the manga and watched the anime. So, like, obviously all the stuff in the beginning is pretty much clear and cut. The movie, it's like, they included Ichigo's classmates, they included Uryu, they included Urahara for no reason. He never did anything. And it's like, why are you gonna bring in all these characters if the only ones that matter are Ichigo and Rukia?
Yeah.
Like, don't bring them in. Like, yeah, if there's a sequel, it'll make sense. But if there is no sequel planned, then you shouldn't be including them because it's just gonna leave it open-ended. It's like, okay, then what about him? What about that?
Yeah, and a lot of these, like, side notes and, like, extra scenes shouldn't have been added. Like, during the beginning of the movie, it's like, you know, this is Ichigo Kurosaki, he can see ghosts. That doesn't really get brought up, and plus Ichigo becomes a Shinigami anyway, so that, you know, that's kind of like self-explanatory from the whole ghost part, so that should have been introduced. Just kind of a waste of time. Another thing that should have been introduced was Uryu, because I think he has two scenes in this movie. One is the introduction, the second one is like when Grand Fisher shows up and he, like, hits him 3 times and then gets knocked out. Like, they introduce stuff without really explaining it to its fullest potential for them to then throw it away. Like, if you want to throw in Uryu, that's fine. If you want to throw Ichigo can talk to ghosts, that's fine. But then establish it enough that when it does get tossed out, then we have a reason to not to care. Be like, okay, I understand it enough. You can move on now. Cause, like, when you're like, that's a huge fucking thing, bro. Like, you bring in a whole new race, the Quincy's, to just be like, okay, he's a throwaway character until whenever we want to bring him back, and then they all get their mind erased. Spoiler, like Men in Black edition. Like, you bring in a lot of you know, concepts to this movie that just end up getting thrown out anyway. And it's just like, why? Because then that makes it really hard for your sequel to, like, okay, we're gonna bring these back, even though they're so minuscule that what's the point adding them to begin with if you should have just fleshed it out from the start.
And like, didn't Ichigo, like, go to Urahara and, like, talk to him?
No, Rukia did. No, he did actually. Yeah, he did go to Urahara. He was like, I don't even know how he found out. No, I think his dad probably told him about the shot. One of those two.
Which is like, okay, so you're gonna. I don't know. I didn't like the execution. I thought it was really boring.
Yeah, that's another.
I rated it out of 10, which is pretty high of a rating for it because like the action scenes were fine, the comedic scenes were really funny, but everything else was just really.
What was your rating for it again?
4.
4. Okay, I give it a 5. I give it a 5, just because. I give it a 5 because they. This is me reaching, bro. But I give it a 5 because I felt like they really tried their hardest with this, but I felt like there was a lot of incidents that hold them back. The main ones being themselves. And I felt like that, like, and this is what I have a problem with the internet, like, when they hear this, like, oh, you guys are assholes, you guys being jerks, blah, blah, blah. Like, I say this stuff because like nobody's being honest about this movie. Like everyone's like, "Oh, this movie's fantastic, it's amazing," blah blah blah. But like they never go into depth on like which scenes happen, how they happen, in which order. Because I feel like when you really break these scenes down, the movie's more flawed than it is like the spectacular thing everybody's making it out to be. And it's not a train wreck. Like keep in mind, this movie is no Death Note, it's no Dragon Ball Evolution, it's no like Ghost in the Shell. Like it's a really good live action adaptation. That's how you know this podcast is long. It's a really good live action adaptation, but that's all it's ever going to be. It's not going to be like, you know, blockbuster of the year, you know, #1 movie in Japan. Like it's just a good adaptation, and I felt like it's one of those things where it's like, oh, you're a good, you know, when people like when you do YouTube videos as us, you know, they'll be like, oh, you're a good writer for a YouTuber, you know, you're not a good writer as like Hollywood wise. And like that's the level that it's at. It's good for an anime adaptation, but this isn't no like Hollywood, no big budget, you know, feature film. It's good for what the state that it's at, but I feel like films, especially adaptations, should set itself more higher and have such a higher pedestal and rating for themselves. Like they should have more confidence in themselves that they can be so much bigger than what they're adapting. And I know that comes to budgeting, that comes to rights, all this other stuff, but I feel like if you have the passion and the will to take a series that you want to, you know, put the money into more, then you're able as a person and as a creator to take that as far as you want, no matter what gets in your way, no matter how much money it costs. And I feel like that's where this movie lacks in, is that it had a budget, they went within that budget and didn't want to go as far as they needed to.
Right, and like I know a lot of people will say like, well, you're complaining about these plot holes, but what if there is a sequel? I mean, I don't think there will be because it went straight to Netflix after like 3 weeks.
Yeah, and also like that's another thing too. AKA guys, this movie is dubbed, which did not get announced until like after the movie released. Because I had messaged Kay on Twitter, I was like, Kay, you know this movie got dubbed? She was like, when? I was like, right now. And I was like, and I only knew about it because the voice actors that I followed was like, hey, there's a dub feature on the Netflix version. What's that?
No, I just said I'm in this thing. Like, hey, I'm in this thing.
Oh yeah, the live action movie. Yeah, because the voice actors like Karuchi Tang, who hasn't been in Bleach, but you know was a part of the live action film, and Johnny Bosch was like, hey, like guys, like you know the live action movie is dubbed if you want an option. I was like, I feel like something that like A, Netflix, or like B, the people who made this movie should have promoted that, like, hey, it's dubbed if you know want that option. But it's those incidents where again they don't tell you this, they don't inform you. It's one of those things where it's left up in the air. It's one of those things where if you're a fan, you will know this. If you're not, you're shit out of luck. And I feel that's like really bad. But yeah, we can talk about Bleach for hours, but like in no way, like I said, for people who are watching, in no way do I think that this is like the worst live action movie. It's just that I know
oh god, it's probably the best anime it's just not a good film.
Right.
That makes sense.
Oh yeah, definitely. As I was saying before, it's good for a live action adaptation, but it doesn't go anything beyond that. Like it's a really good film. Like if I had to pick any anime live action movie, this is definitely #1 without a doubt. Like
the Full Metal one was kind of trash.
Ass. Yeah.
Ghost in the Shell was really bad.
Alright, this will never
Attack on Titan is like a disease.
Alright, that's just a clusterfuck. I don't know what that movie is.
Like Bleach really is like one of the best adaptations. Like they knew what they were working with, they just didn't execute it
Right. I think that comes down to budgeting too. Like people will say like, "Oh, it made its money back. It made this and that," and blase guys. I like money and score does not mean anything. It's all about the final product. If I think your movie is this or that or the other, that's just how I feel. Like, and this is the internet, and everybody has their own opinion or whatever. But I'm not like me and Kate. We're not gonna lie about how we think. Like we thought about this when we were watching the movie. It was like, "Yo, this shit kind of janky, bro." Like.
Like I went into it like, okay, well, if it's good, then it's good. And then we got to the middle, and I was like, oh god, this is
all right, shit trying to drag, bro. And I was saying this before. I feel like that if they would have implement not all the scenes, but some of the scenes from the anime, would have probably helped itself out a lot more too. But for what it had accomplished and what it did, it was a pretty good job at it. Like I said, it is a 5 in my book. Like that's good. Like saying that a movie is a 5 not a bad thing. It's just I don't find it spectacular like all these other fake YouTubers. But with what we had to watch out the way, now we get to our anime news announcement, which is everything that has been announced at the time of this video, which would be in November, about to start December. But at the time this video goes up, hopefully it'll be Christmas time since we did the whole senpai clause. But anime news announcement, and the first thing we have on our show notes is